Welcome everyone to another episode of Flyover Live. We are coming to you from Liberty Street on Mass Ave in downtown Indianapolis. Let's get started.
There's a black cloud rising, broad and wide.
All right, thank you all for joining us this week for this episode of Flyover Live, a weekly podcast talking about the latest entertainment and political news from the eyes of three Midwestern millennials. So I am your host, Cliff Dennis, and I am joined today by Brent Pierce.
Cheers.
And Mark is on assignment in Fort Wayne.
Well played.
And so we have a special guest host today, Whitney Kincaid. She had so much fun last week that she came back from work.
They couldn't keep me away.
And our guest today is JD Ford.
Hi, everybody.
So, let me just get started with JD, unless you have anything you want to talk about from last weekend. Did you do anything fun last weekend, Brent?
Last weekend? No, my wife was kind of sick.
That's
Not to just get down here in the weeds, but no, nothing. It was leisurely, nothing incredibly exciting, but it was a nice weekend
The relaxing
weather-wise.
weekends are always good to have.
They
so.
are. You got to throw them in there for
Whitney,
sure.
did you do anything?
I went down to my friend's horse farm, and well, I did makeup for her engagement photo shoot, her pictures. So,
that's what they were doing in the
yeah,
farm?
so they were incorporating lots of livestock in these pictures. Her favorite horse, stuff like
Is
that.
this like in Kentucky, or is it in...
No, it's in Bloomington.
Oh, horse farm in Bloomington. Okay.
Yeah, there's actually a whole city outside of the school campus. So who knew?
That's neat, though. It's
Yeah.
God's country down there. I love Bloomington, love some Monroe,
Oh, yeah.
Brown County.
Nice and hilly.
So-
It kind of looks like
yeah.
a different. Yeah, it kind
Oh,
of feels like
it's-
you're in a totally different place than up here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Brent's from Martinsville, for those of you that don't know.
Oh, so pretty close.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's 20 minutes away there from B-Town.
Yeah.
Very fond of that part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
How was your weekend, Cliff? By the
it
way?
wasn't too bad. I had a nice, relaxing weekend as well. We tested some of our new fun equipment for today. And
How dare I not mention that? That was a nice Sunday fun day experience
It was,
for us.
yeah.
Got
And,
the
and-
new mixer out and got this all. We should all sound very, very
hopefully
sexy
everybody's
today.
pleased with the way we sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I had drinks and dinner with a good friend. Talk shop a little bit on Friday, and by talking shop I mean she and I talked about how some of our worst dates have gone. So,
Oh wow. Okay.
Commiserating is that?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And
Group
we checked
therapy.
out, and we checked out just down the street, Louis Wine.
Oh, it's a
Bar.
great new place.
I was
Louis
there a
Wine
couple
Dive.
weekends ago.
Never even heard
Yeah,
of
Louis
it.
Wine Dive. It's actually it's a Kansas City restaurant and bar, and they've expanded to here, some other Midwestern spots, but not to tie in the whole Midwestern theme here, but
Yeah,
it makes
but
sense.
it
It's
was-
a great new place.
It was a good
Is it
time.
right beside McNiven's?
It
on
is.
Mass Ave?
Yeah.
Yep.
So is that a plug that we're gonna go ahead and give them?
We're gonna. I guess we're going ahead and giving.
And
them-
if they want
we're
to
giving them out for
sponsor,
free.
by all means.
right.
Why
Yeah.
pay?
Just get one of these guys drunk. We'll probably mention
Exactly.
you at some
You can
point.
mention as many times as you want.
Bring it.
By the way, speaking of drinking, I think we've well established by now that the drinking game associated with this show is anytime I say millennials. So
Mm-hmm.
I
There you
said
go.
we. You notice I said we. I didn't say anytime Cliff says millennials. I said anytime
Oh.
we say millennials because I
That's
just
a
did
lot.
it 3 times.
that would be a
Yeah,
lot.
I think we should be the rule, to be honest, because we tend to.
Sheesh.
Cliff, he'll mention it
Yeah.
27, 30 times
Wow.
a show, but some of us will, a handful of times. So I think the we
Just
clause.
wait till I get to my
Yeah.
whole segment on it. So.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Anywho, JD, before we waste any more of your time.
Yeah.
Hey, no, I'm happy to be here.
So for everyone that doesn't know, JD lives here in Indianapolis now, but is a graduate of the University of Akron, received his master's from Purdue.
Yes.
And,
Boiler up. Sorry, Brent.
I know.
Banner up.
No,
We can't hear.
all three
Banner
of us.
up.
Oh, really?
yeah.
You're
I
out.
didn't
Didn't know that I was walking into the Lion's Den here
You
today.
are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
Banner
I'm the
up.
most ferocious.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll try to tone down my Purdue rhetoric today.
Please.
But
Thank you.
one of JD's claims to fame, among I'm sure many, is that he did run for the Indiana State Senate.
That's great.
correct? In
Yep.
2014
Yes.
against Mike Delph.
Yeah.
And then so the district that you ran in is what, like the northern part of Indianapolis and southern Hamilton County?
Yes, that's correct. It's northwest side, so that's Pike and Wayne townships of Indianapolis, and then Zionsville and parts of Carmel.
Cool. So like, how was that experience for you?
For me, it was an absolutely eye-opening experience. It's always been a dream of mine to run for public office, and and just to get out there and to meet people and to hear people's stories, it was all worth it. I mean, a lot of sleepless nights, but at the same time, it's one of the things that I can check off my bucket list. And say,
well, I know a lot of candidates keep track of how many doors they ended up knocking on. Did you?
Yeah.
Do you happen to know? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, we
about how many?
We approximately about 29,000 doors.
Wow.
And,
29,000.
and we know that we probably could have done more if we had more time. But
sure.
But that. I'm a glutton for punishment, and I really like to knock on doors. And not a lot of candidates do, but I like to do it because, again, going back to, you don't know what's on the other side of that door, and you don't know who in that household needs your help, and so, and to hear their stories and to figure out a way or a solution that I can help them, I love doing that stuff.
So, also not to put you on the spot, but any really funny, good stories about? Well, okay, we'll do one funny.
Okay.
One maybe heart-wrenching, because I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the funny story is that.
Well, I know there's a lot. I mean, I personally have done some door knocking just in general. Like, I
vacuum cleaner sales.
Right, exactly. Very bad decision making on my part as a high school student trying to do some summer work, and I know I knocked on a door for, what is it? The gas company, the lobbying group that does the gas, like Nabisco up in Fort Wayne or whatever.
Nabisco's
Nabisco's
the cookies.
Northern Indiana. Yeah.
Whatever. It's good.
So I'm apparently on Millennial.
Now I'm starving.
Number,
yeah, right.
But I'm sitting there and being trained by somebody while they're asking for money from this little old lady that cannot afford to contribute to their campaign.
It's a little bit different.
This isn't about me.
From
This
a
is about
campaign.
JD. So
anyway,
it's a round table.
Any funny stories?
Funny stories. I was out knocking doors in Zionsville, and at this point, our commercial had been on TV, and I was on the news and things of that nature. So I was starting to get out there and get my name out there, and so, and you just never know how people are going to react to you. And so I'm walking down the street with volunteers, and I see this big white massive pickup truck barreling down the street at me. And I'm like, oh God, like here we go. Like I'm about to get it. And they throw it in park, and they jump out, and they're like running up to me, and they're like, "You're JD Ford. You're on TV. I know who you are." I'm like, "Yeah, I am, and thank you." And is this going to be a friendly conversation?
Good or bad
Yeah,
here.
right.
Yeah.
And it really was instances like that I was just like, this is really cool. This is really cool to do that.
Right. But any major issues you kept hearing over and over again that Indiana feel like Indiana needs to address, or that?
Yeah, I mean, for me,
it struck a chord with you, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe.
for me, last year was obviously a very big year about LGBT, and and so I actually ran as an out candidate, and so for me, just to hear people say, I have a gay son, I have a gay daughter, I have a neighbor, I have an uncle, whatever the case may be, and so just to hear how many Americans truly appreciated, that, and honestly, it was really cool. It was really awesome, so.
JD, piggybacking on, I know you said you liked the whole knocking the doors and making the phone calls and all that. I've been on campaigns before, and a lot of folks out there that maybe are aspiring to run, or they have a calling for public office to make a difference. But a lot of the average, I think, Hoosier doesn't quite understand the amount of time and effort it takes to run for. Can issues aside, opponent aside, just a day in the life, it's very demanding.
Yeah,
right?
it is
had
very
a lot
demanding.
of candidates just at a certain point in time you say, I'm shut off. I'm going golfing or whatever.
Right.
So,
No, that's a great question. And for me, I was doing coffee in the morning with two different people. So I'd wake up super early, 6, 7 o'clock ish, go do coffee. I had a full-time job while doing all this, so I had to do that. I took the last month off to kind of try and really kind of get out there. But so do my full-time job, and then doing some fundraising stuff at night, going out and knocking doors, going to dinners. That's kind of the thing that you have to do, and so it's really out there. So that's kind of day in the life. And on top of that,
it can be a very sort of like, I don't know, you have to endure, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
can be taxing, I guess.
And on top of that, you have to raise money too, and so during my lunchtime, I was doing what we call dialing for dollars, which is you get a list of people and you start dialing away and saying, hey, I'm running for this office, and I could appreciate your $100 check or $500.
I can't even
how
imagine.
much, so.
I have been a part of a few campaigns who's just trying to give a little bit of my time to help.
Sure, yeah.
And just that aspect of calling random people and asking for money, I don't even know.
Yeah,
how
and those responses are fun. Some people are super supportive, and some people are like, never call me again. Click.
Yeah, but if you've made any, if you've been a phone bank anytime for a campaign, I don't care, if it's, red, blue, regardless, you're going to have those folks who just do not like to get those phone calls. And, not that it makes or breaks a campaign, but, raising those dollars is hugely important. So you have to do it.
And the candidate cannot take it personal, because when I first got started, it was like, is it me? Is it who I am? Is it my platform? Am I not calling them and saying the right thing? So, you just have to kind of believe in the process and believe in yourself. And, because there's many nights that, I went to bed, I'm just like, am I doing the right stuff? Am I saying the right things? Am I connecting with people? And that's tough. So.
Yeah.
So what was your platform?
Well, I was real big on education. My master's degree is in education from Purdue. So
ironic. Huh?
Yeah, right. But for me, it was really and I would hear this out when I was knocking on doors, is that obviously attracting people to the state of Indiana is important, and schools are important, and people want to come here if there's good schools, and so. So I've heard that a lot. Women's rights were big for me.
I love everything about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I would say that obviously LGBT rights for the state of Indiana and moving equality forward was important to me. So not my total platform, but yeah.
Awesome.
I will say that, just as a bystander in that race, it was almost like there was sometimes those down ticket, state senate, state house races can get just sort of like lost in the mix.
Yeah.
But I really feel like your race was just a clear, he's who he is.
That's right.
I am who I am, and it just,
it was
very
about
high
as clear cut
profile.
as you get in choices.
In Indiana, especially, and for what it's worth, you ran a fantastic campaign.
Well, thank
JD,
you. I appreciate that.
Who was your opponent? I'm sorry.
My opponent was State Senator Mike Delph. And,
okay.
Yep. And so he obviously won. And for me, it's really sad because I know that I could have done really a lot of things for our district. And right now he's who's in the paper about running for the U.S.
United
Senate.
States Senate.
So to me, I think that should go to show folks in our district that he was never running to represent them. He was only running for himself, and to further his political career. And so, that's not me. I would have, if I were elected, doing a lot of constituent work is important. Like as I mentioned, I was out walking and knocking on doors, but when I was doing that, I was also noticing that this neighborhood block has an abandoned building and this sewer drain is not working properly. And so what I would do is I would capture all that stuff and I would submit stuff to the city and to the state to get that stuff done. And so for me, I was already doing his job,
right.
And so for me, he was nowhere to be found. Right. But then, so for me, I wanted to be the public servant that was about action and not just a name and only. So
well, and I think like piggybacking off of what Brenton's saying is that a lot of this is it serves to exemplify why some of these races really matter. And I think part of what we're trying to do with this show is engage millennials. There it is for the kids playing at home.
I will
drink to that.
Can we cheers it?
Cheers, we can.
What do they call that, a waterfall where you go around?
Got a little excited there.
Oh, good.
There goes your notes, Brent.
That's okay.
Just spilled on Brent's notes.
Yeah, it's his new waterproof paper.
There you go.
Okay.
But to try to engage millennials in what we're doing and see how much some of these, like you're saying, these down ticket races really make a huge difference in our day-to-day lives, more so than who the president is or who our congressman is.
Yeah.
These state house races and state senate races and mayor's races and city county councilor races make a huge difference.
Yeah,
we just saw it last session.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to come on with you guys was because, when I was out talking with people, some people had said, "Well, JD, like the election already happened in May." And I said, no, that's the primary.
Right.
There's two. There's the primary and the general. And so a lot of people just didn't know basic civics, And so I had to, on one point I was running as a candidate, but on the other part I was almost like kind of having to give a civics lesson out there as well. And and I think that kind of goes to show people that people are busy. They have their own life. They have a job. And so, whatever we can do to help get this out there, not only that, but also fix our election laws. And we can probably talk about that at a later time. But
a whole nother show.
And we talk hours upon that. But I think that we have to, we have to get people engaged. We have to get them involved because at the very least of things, if our state senate tomorrow wanted to convene and say everyone's going to wear a green sweatshirt tomorrow, they can do that.
Yeah. Well,
interesting.
One party in particular has a supermajority, and they can certainly swing
whatever
that
they want.
into
And
action
we
pretty
can
quickly.
yell and scream at the top of our lungs, but and that's the thing is people need to write their legislators. They need to get involved. They need to pick up the newspaper, watch the news, so we can get active.
Yeah.
So.
To echo all of sort of what's been said. What gets me is that a lot of people can be disenfranchised by national politics. It tends to get all the attention.
I'm
and
loving
all
the Trump
sort of
thing, by the way.
news
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm digging the Trumpster
Yeah.
right
man.
now. But to go back to your point, the reality is you're more affected by your local government than you are your national government. And so, that disconnect between, lower turnout for local elections almost makes zero sense to me because that
What
should be
impacts you
that
the most,
you
or
should
does.
be out
Yeah.
and voting in those elections a lot more. And so it's timely, right? Because here in Indy we do have city elections coming up here,
right.
a mayor's
Mayor's race
race
is
and
this
city
fall.
county council races in Lawrence and Marion County, and so it's very, very, very important that folks understand that. I mean, to use a real world experience, I went to a neighborhood association meeting where Vop Ostley was speaking.
Sure.
The old North Side, and somebody said, "You know what? The alley behind my house is just decrepit. Right? There's potholes everywhere. I don't want to drive it, and to swear on this, the next day there was a crew out there fixing it because Vop, made a phone call. So
That's amazing.
that is, but that is what your local council, your mayor's office, your state house members,
Regardless
they're
of party,
connected.
that's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And
That's
that,
right.
that transcends politics.
Yeah.
Right? Forget about a lot of your progressive conservative
Yeah.
issues. That's just nuts and bolts getting stuff done.
Yeah.
And that was also one of my biggest messages was that, obviously I ran as a Democrat, but to me, R&D didn't really matter as long as we were getting stuff done for our people.
Yep.
And it seems like
hugely important. I mean,
the lower, and maybe lower is not the right term I should use, but the closer you are to the populace in terms of local politics, the less the R&D matters. It's more about who's going to get the job done.
Totally right.
And so it's just it's ridiculous. So
Makes
one of the
sense.
questions I had for you
Sure.
was going along with what I was saying about engagement for folks our age and younger is, what advice can you give to somebody that's considering running?
Yeah.
Or, do's and don'ts, or even just in general what to consider, or, I think a lot of people get discouraged. They don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I mean,
For me, I think the very first thing is that you have to get involved in the community, and so you've got to show up to things. You've got to do your neighborhood cleanups. You've got to, volunteer at your local church. You've got to do those stuff to get your face out there, right? Because I don't think anybody really wants, a politician showing up at their door the last second asking for votes.
Opportunistic,
People
without
want
putting in the legwork.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So I think people really want to see someone who's been in the community and work. And for me personally, even though I lost my election last November, I didn't lose my idea of community service, and so I'm still out there doing the neighborhood cleanups.
Sure.
I'm working with local council candidates in Indianapolis. I lost in November, but December I was with the Wayne Township trustee doing the local pancake, breakfast.
Yeah.
I wanted people to see that I wasn't a sore loser, and that I wanted to continue out there. It didn't for
Well,
me.
you just want to help the community in general.
Really, that's all
regardless of the way in which
You weren't
doing
just
it.
purely politically motivated.
Right, exactly.
Right?
That's what.
You knocked 29,000 doors,
Yeah.
and you go up on TV like,
Yeah.
You would take a certain kind of person to just like hang it up the next day and say, you know what?
I mean,
to
I
heck
was
with
mad.
you all.
I mean, I will be honest with you guys.
Yeah.
I was very down. I was very sad. I know that I could have done so much for that district.
Sure.
But I didn't want that to define me as a person and as a candidate. And I hope that people in the future will see that I'm not just doing this for my own personal gain like my opponent is currently doing. I hope people see that I truly want to make a difference in my community. So that's what the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is that you got to do some strong intro. Really look inside yourself, because as you mentioned, Brent, that you got to sit down and make a list of all your friends, right? And then you got to make a list of all the friends who are going to write you a check. And then also put a like kind of like this group, put a group together where you can kind of bounce ideas off of people and be like, is this going to work or not, So that's what I would say.
It's external and internal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of folks probably don't quite understand that it is physically, emotionally, psychologically taxing, trial to actually run for office. And I don't care who you are. If you, the far right, far left, if you do it, more power to you.
Yeah.
You know that you're sticking your neck out there, standing for something publicly. You gotta have to applaud it.
I mean, that's part of
definitely.
what maybe I was hoping you might get at, and has always concerned me about any of whether it's me, although I don't know that I'd ever run for anything, but my friends or anybody is just the light that gets shined down on you in that situation is what I would be so fearful of. And I don't know, did you have any random calls from the press for I mean
well, first of all, let me add one more thing back to the things that you should do, and that's talk to your county chairman. And so,
there you go.
Chairman Miller, if you're listening,
regardless of the party, you should
yeah.
probably get involved and and talk to them, which I've also heard other people advise to heck with your talk to your party if you want to get involved, regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, but then maybe sometimes say to hell with them if they're gonna as a millennial.
Right. And drink to that.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Be willing to take a risk, and get your name out there, even if they're trying to, tell you to wait your turn. But sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I would say do it. Like that's the other thing too. It's just like I said, it was a life-changing experience for me. So, but
do you think you'd ever run again?
Yes, I think at some point I would like to. At this point, I'm not quite sure. So just kind of keeping all options open.
If
it's a lot of work. I know.
We can see your sexy mug on TV again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean that would be payment enough alone. Just exposure.
You're welcome, Indianapolis. That's
right.
You're welcome.
Well, at this point, I think we can talk about a few things going on in the news in the Midwest. If you don't have any other questions for JD, Brent.
Can I just jump in real quick? I just want to say happy birthday to President Obama. Today's his birthday.
He's
really?
He's 54 today.
That's
I thought he
right.
was maybe 10 years older than that, to be quite honest.
Wow.
But
it's really, for me, looking at President Obama when he first started, and he has his fresh, clean haircut with no gray hair,
his bright eyes,
and then today,
His bright eyes.
it's just
a
full
lot of
hope.
gray hair.
I
So
can't imagine.
Can you
I mean,
yeah.
you literally have the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Quite
almost
literally.
24/7.
Quite literally. Well, maybe not.
Yeah, but you're right. Happy birthday, Mr. President.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Regardless of party.
I would break out into song, but I mean, this mic is
Everybody
already
loves
set up to
birthdays.
make me sound sexy, so I shouldn't.
need
If
to
you'd
do
had
that,
one
yeah.
more cider, I bet you
I
could
know.
pull it off.
Oh, sheesh.
I'm trying to reel it back in. I'm not the guest today. I'm the guest host.
So keeping in mind the fact that this may be one of the this is the segment of the show where the drinking game kicks into high gear,
Bring it.
because this is
Bring
the quote millennial section of the show. But I found a few articles this week that interest me and hopefully interest you all as well as our listeners. But I think something that we talked about last week was about how there's this kind of trend in the media to portray millennials as though there are all these negatives about us that are new compared to our predecessors. Thank you.
Previous generations.
The Gen Xers or the Boomers. So anyway, a couple articles that I found was about how millennials are supposedly living with their parents a lot more, and that may, factually be true. The percentages here are it rose actually post-recession from 24% to 26%, which is what the article's kind of focusing on, is if the recession's over, why is this still happening, and why is it in fact getting worse, if anything? And the other one, these are all kind of grouped together, I think, in terms of the broader discussion about how millennials are not doing that much worse in terms of wages compared to previous generations. I think, like they said, a typical millennial averages about $33,883 a year in 2013 dollars, and that is down 9.3% adjusted for inflation compared to like the 90s.
Wow.
And this is an article in Slate where they're talking about this new study that Steve Ratner wrote about, who's a pretty famous economist / business leader. But what the writer of this article in Slate was trying to do was kind of talk about the flip side of this, and that is that if you break out millennials that are older, from 25 to 35, those that are starting their professional career, and you compare that to those people that are 25, 35 in years past, there really is no change. And the different, but keeping on the same kind of tone of what Steve Ratner was getting at is, it's not a good thing. She's saying it's not as bad. The writer of this article is saying it's not as bad as Steve Ratner was saying, but it's not good because that still means that the wages have stagnated. It's still this, if anything at best, it's the same. So I mean, I guess there's that. But
Right.
But anyway, I don't mean to like throw a huge amount of facts on the table for discussion.
It feeds the same narrative, though,
yeah,
right?
It's this
I mean, it's a number
about people.
Facts and stats that sort of feed the same narrative, which is, and you can look objectively at the statistics, and it's very much, millennials are, they have more debt, student loan debt. They paid more for higher education. They took out more for loans at higher interest rates than the previous generations.
Right.
Which
was part of what that article talked about in terms of living with parents, is that maybe it doesn't have anything to do with wage stagnation, economic prosperity. It has more to do with the fact that we're suffering through this student loan debt.
It's called buying power.
Yeah,
right.
and we can't go out and buy a house.
That's the key phrase here is whenever you're leveraged to the hilt with any kind of debt. I mean, student loan debt is no different in the eyes of a lender than credit card debt.
Sure.
So when you come out of school, with a starting salary somewhere, and you go try to buy, a house or, buy, you are less likely to be lended to, given your financial status as someone who's very indebted. So that's a huge difference, I think, from previous generations. Yeah. And let's not. Down 9.3% is not insignificant, right?
Yeah.
That's still a huge change from previous generations as far as wages go. And then I think it feeds a larger narrative that we are in a state in this economy in this country that wages haven't risen adjusted for inflation in 16 years. For the middle class,
or longer,
right? 99 is the last time I think there was an uptick.
A little uptick. Okay.
But but to your point, sure. I mean, you're talking about the middle class of this country, which millennials who are coming out, that are 33,000, would fit within that definition of middle class.
Sure.
Have not seen a raise, in a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's sort of unique to millennials, but there are certain barriers that
Yeah.
millennials have to deal with that other folks haven't dealt with
Yeah.
before.
And I also think about like what my grandparents did when I was my age, right?
Sure.
And I kind of feel like, they were just a little bit more advanced than me. Like they're building skyscrapers and all this other stuff, really kind of building the infrastructure of America. And and I work with millennials on a day-to-day basis with my job, my daytime job. And so I can just tell that sometimes it's, I don't know, they're just a totally different breed than maybe myself. I feel.
Well, we talked about this last week. We're lumped
Yeah.
into that category.
We are. I barely just
We're the-
made the
Somehow.
cusp to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know,
it's
so
80 to 2,000, I think, is
Yeah.
what we talked about
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah.
So so we're on the high end of it, but
Yeah.
even within millennials, there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the student, I go back to, and this may be something that it feels like I might bring up every show, is that the student loan debt
New drinking game?
student loan debt's the new game.
Yeah.
Is a huge factor in this because if we're talking about one of the other articles I didn't bring up because I just didn't want to overload with facts is part of what goes along with not or living with your parents is that you're not moving out and buying a home or building a home.
Yeah.
So there's this huge slump
Housing
in
market,
housing,
new home purchases, but
new
yeah.
exactly, new home purchases compared to the population size. That all these economists expect there to be more homes being built, but all these millennials are staying home with parents to save money to pay
Sure.
student loan debt, and that has a
'cause
huge
they're coming
impact
out
on
with-
everybody, whether you're a Gen Xer,
Yeah.
a millennial, a boomer. The economy, a huge factor in the economy is home sales. Because everything that goes along with building that,
Yeah.
everything that you do to furnish your home,
Yeah.
and so that, hey,
I've read a number of places where the student loan debt bubble, which that's the next big
It's-
bubble as
yeah.
far as the
Yeah.
economy is concerned, is the largest drag post-recession on the
Yes.
economy.
I read the same thing. And
Yeah.
what I find interesting is that a lot of our federal candidates that are running for president right now are starting to address this and put plans out there to see how they're going to address it. I know there's a lot of talk about micro lending, which is where you gotta, you can go to someone who's got the money, they'll give you the money, but then you got to submit your grades to make sure that those funds are still going to continue to be there. So
Yeah.
interesting to see different ways of how to deal with this. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but
Sure.
but there are a
It's
lot
an
of
idea that's been floated.
that's
yeah,
out
I've
there.
seen
Well,
that
remember
as
one
well.
simple idea that I think was that Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts was saying is just something really simple that has a easy correlation to every other type of loan that you could make, and that is to be able to refinance.
Yeah, right.
It was just
Yeah.
shot down yesterday in the Senate.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, made it out
And
of
that
committee.
doesn't seem
but
like
it
that's
was-
that's not party specific. That's
Yeah.
why couldn't I refinance?
Yeah.
You're
Right.
not
The-
losing anything from me not being from me being able to refinance. If you don't change anything else about the student loan, as far as not being dischargeable in bankruptcy or anything like that, the lender's not losing anything by that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's out of the Senate Help Committee, which is Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. And if you go to their website, it's a big thing. They're always talking about it. There's always hearings, and they really want to try and address it.
Yeah, the argument that I've heard against that, which comes from I think Republicans in the Senate, is that when the way that Elizabeth Warren wanted to approach it was you refinance your federal loans at a lower rate.
Yeah.
And they believe that lower rate of whatever 3.5%, 3% is not consistent with market rate private lenders. So that doesn't make any. I mean, actually, it hurts folks who have loans. But their argument is the government shouldn't do anything that undercuts the private sector.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Huh.
Don't
Interesting.
agree, but that's their argument
Yeah.
against
Well,
it.
all I know
Right.
is I get emails promising me rates that low. So whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Facebook posts
Whether they're true,
sometimes.
hey, I
yeah.
think everything on the internet's true.
Yeah.
So the other story I wanted to talk about was Indiana lawmakers. So this is squarely at you, JD.
Okay.
Maybe Brent. This could maybe get Brent fired up. Always trying to do it. Indiana lawmakers call for a study on teacher shortage.
Oh my
So
gosh.
Yeah.
So the article here is by WFYI, our local NPR and PBS station. So the Indiana Senate and House Education Committees are doing a summer study committee on the fact that between 2010 In 2014, we had a drop from 16,578 and to 6,174 in new teachers. A drop of about 10,000, 3 to 1. If my math is anything, I didn't go to Purdue, so.
That means your math is correct then.
But seriously, is anybody surprised about this?
No.
I mean,
Shouldn't be.
It
No,
shouldn't
with
be.
all of the
After all the stuff
Yeah.
that our state house has done to teachers around the state. First of all, there's insufficient pay. These
Yeah.
folks are working their butts off. And they get insufficient pay. But yeah, these are the people that are educating our children.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
you've got that. You've got a hostile teaching environment where where the teaching is to the standardized test. It's not even to teaching anymore. And so you've got that. You've got reappropriating state money to other schools that may not necessarily need it. And so
Other schools are charter schools.
charter schools, yeah, and
Or private schools,
or
for
private
that
schools,
matter,
and the
through the
Republicans
voucher
love
program.
to say that they've given out so much money, But I would caution people to really, contact their legislator and really figure out where that's going.
And to be very, what's the word I'm looking
Cynical?
for? Cynical, yeah, it's exactly the word I was looking for. It almost seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've got super majorities in both House and Senate, and I try to be as objective as possible with the show, but at the same time, when you call a spade, you throw a bunch of money into one aspect of education, i.e., charter schools or private schools. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that these public school teachers and teachers in general are going to drop off if you're denigrating them, you're not properly paying them. And so now you get to go back and you get to say, oh, well, look at how poorly these schools are doing. Well, when you create an environment where, you have, like I just mentioned, 16,000 to 6,000, what you've got a lower amount of, they love, you want to talk about choice. Choice in being able to hire a good teacher. Your choice of teacher went from 3 possible candidates, just, some basic math here. I don't know, Purdue, JD, do the math for me, but
Get out your
3 candidates,
calculator.
3 candidates for that
7
job
knocks
to
on it.
1. You're going to.
This is an issue that, to JD's first point, which is not one of us should be surprised as to the fact that this is economics, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, when you attack a profession through legislation, that makes less
Consistent.
folks want to go into it, and those who are already into it want to go do something else. I have friends who are our age who have left the profession.
So
who
do
all they
I.
wanted to do when they were growing up was teach.
Yep, they're born
left
teachers.
because there has been
It's an uphill battle.
an assault on teachers at the State House. And
Yeah.
that's not hyperbole. That's when you go back and look at the facts, what they passed, took away collective bargaining, did merit pay based on standardized tests,
That's right.
performance, and not accounting for, socioeconomics, I guess, not to, whenever Mitch Daniels was governor, he called, teachers lazy. They get summers off. Why should we, that sort of rhetoric. And then when you begin to funnel, and it's not just that we're funding private schools, we're taking money from the public school education fund to fund private schools.
Yeah.
And so that's the big thing for me is, no wonder.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's the kicker to all this is that we need our Republican legislators to call on their own Republican legislators to call for a study committee. And I don't know if our listeners know what a study committee is, but it's basically an opportunity to study the issue, right?
Air quotes.
Yeah, and take a look
They
at
just did
what's
that,
going
right?
on.
Didn't they just?
Yeah, and actually, I think and I would encourage people to come out to the hearings, August 8th, September 8th, September 29th. Go down to the State House, listen to what's being said, because you don't need a study committee. This doesn't need to be studied. We just need to start respecting our teachers and paying them for what they're worth. Period.
Yeah.
Just anecdotally, as we've been talking about this, I've thought in my head, I know at least 6 teachers, just in my personal life, that have either 3 of which, it's funny that we were talking about people living back at home, 3 of which moved back at home that were single,
Wow.
1 that quit teaching because she got married to somebody that was pretty well off, and then 2 beyond that switched to a different profession that paid them better, where they got better respect. So,
Yeah.
and I think the 3 that moved home, I think that, what you said about there's a 2% increase between certain years that people were living at home, even though the recession had
Exactly.
stopped.
That was exactly what I said.
I think the reason that I think these 3 girls in particular, they were friends, it might be something about it being destigmatized, people living back at home because of student loans, because their wages, their expectations aren't being met.
And that was exactly
Hey.
mentioned in the articles.
One,
Yeah.
Starting salary
Destigmatization,
for a teacher coming out of Purdue with is $32,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
and that's out of Purdue.
Well,
I'm kidding. I
You're
had
on
a
a
friend. It's been
roll.
a couple years ago, but a good friend of mine started teaching in my hometown and made $29,500.
that to me is embarrassing. You
Yeah.
cannot raise
Right, you
a
can't.
family
Student
on that
loan
wage. I'm
debts.
sorry.
I mean,
There might
is
be
there a more
some-
important profession than
Educating our youth.
Might be some
children?
sexism
And-
involved too, because they expect the majority to be, like the second income of the couple of
Oh,
the
yeah.
household. So
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit of
No,
sexism
it's-
there
And,
too.
and I don't think the articles go into any of that, and that's a whole nother layer to
Yeah.
peel.
Well, it
back.
amounts to respect, just like JD
Yeah.
said. We're not respecting our team.
In the House, Representative Bob Baining. In the Senate, Representative Dennis Cruz. Those are the folks we need to talk to.
Yeah.
So
Totally
I think
right.
what is going to have to be our last article to talk about today is it starts with the fact that Gen Con was this last weekend, but that's not what we're going to talk about.
What?
Although,
Why not?
although it's great people watching. For those of you who don't know, who may not be from Indianapolis, but Gen Con is similar to Comic-Con in San Diego, although it's focused on
Gaming.
gaming.
Yeah.
Gaming.
And so we got a
Tabletop
lot
gaming.
but
It
a
is
similar atmosphere in
awesome.
terms of costumes. So it's a very good people watching experience for the weekend if you're downtown. But the segue here is that there's a lot of articles that were written about RIFRA in Indianapolis, in Indiana in general, and whether Indiana can count on
Future.
Gen Con
Conventions
staying
in
here,
general,
and
yeah.
conventions in general staying here. So,
Yeah.
so Gen Con had, I think, anywhere between 56,000 and 60,000 folks show up for that event this last
record-breaking
Yeah,
year
this last
again, I
week.
think.
Were they under contract to be here this year? Because I heard there
Through
was talk.
2020.
Okay,
yeah,
so
there's
there's
we've got a few
2020.
years to negotiate.
Okay.
But they also, the CEO of the convention came out, opening day, and said, listen, yeah, we're here through 2020, but if there's a competitive bid in a city that extends rights and protections
Yeah.
to folks in the LGBT community, then they will move it. So they're, not happy about what happened with RIFRA and very open to, heading somewhere else that's a little
Right.
more friendly to that community.
Yeah, let's make no mistake about this.
Yeah.
This is about Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the RFRA that we've seen. 3,000 people came down to the State House rally, and back in March, I helped to
was
organize
there,
that.
yeah.
It was
great.
That's awesome.
It was phenomenal for all those folks to come out. But Governor Pence is saying that this is over, that there are jobs coming back to Indiana, and everything's fine, everything's peachy. No,
It's not.
we need to make sure that LGBT Hoosiers have basically all I'm asking for is sexual orientation, gender identity into our statute.
Civil rights
into our-
code.
into our
Civil
sta-
rights code.
That's
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
4 words and a comma is all I'm asking for. That will make sure that people are protected in the state. That will make sure that people coming to this state feel welcomed and open. And it's easy. And please do not be fooled. This is still going on. This is a fight
Hey,
that's what happened.
to that point, today, right now, as we speak, you could be fired in
That's right.
Indiana for being gay.
Yeah, and EMT could
lesbian,
refer
transgender, whatever,
refuse service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Right now,
no,
there's a human rights ordinance up in Goshen. There's a USA Today article about it. There's a huge fight going on tonight, actually, right now, with the city council. And so this is going to go on.
The Indianapolis City County Council?
No, Goshen.
The Goshen
Yeah,
City
yeah,
County Council.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
North.
great to the article, to see it at, national news, basically say, the fight for, civil rights equality comes to small Indiana town.
Yeah, right.
You know
yeah,
that?
Yeah.
That kind of gives me goosebumps. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like to have it battle out.
Indiana really
It's
is
the
in the
heartland, so-
spotlight, not
Yeah.
only the national spotlight, but in the world spotlight. And I call upon our legislators, I call upon Governor Pence to do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, and for us to be on the positive side of
Yes.
some of these national stories.
Absolutely.
So
Let's hope it turns around.
Gosh, to that point.
Yeah.
Damaging reputation. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
absolutely.
And that's economic development.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
That's what you look like when you present yourself outside of the state.
That's
and,
right.
You know,
Yep.
to your point, do the right thing.
well, and I heard anecdotally a story about somebody who I forget who it was telling me they were in Florida, and they were just having a drink at a bar or having dinner or something, and they struck up conversation with a stranger, whether they were from Florida or somewhere else in the country, and that was the first thing they asked him about.
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
Riffraff? Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
But the same thing happened in Boston. The
Yeah.
exact
Yeah.
same thing.
Yep.
So,
That's crazy.
So the way in which we're going to try to close out all these shows is to make sure to mention maybe a few things that might be going on around the city or in the Midwest in general. But for us, at least at the moment, it's the city. So Brent, are you doing anything this weekend? Anything that you got going on?
We're
Anything
going
on
to
your
try to
plate?
go. It's not quite Indianapolis. We're going to try to go to the Greenwood Jam Fest on Friday.
Oh, is that music?
Yeah, it's I think it's jazz, it's wine, it's like local food vendors, and I think it's at the like the Old Town Greenwood Town Square. So we're gonna try to hit that up this weekend.
Very
Awesome.
nice.
JD, anything you're doing?
You know, I'm going to spend a lot of time on my couch this weekend. I've been on the go.
Sounds like you deserve it.
Yes, I've been
Well
on the go,
earned.
and so I'm really excited
How
to just
dare
spend some time.
you?
How dare
My
you?
poor puppy doesn't even know who I am anymore.
You have a
so
puppy?
I do have a Sheltie Border Collie mix, so I'm really excited about that.
Binge watch maybe.
Yeah,
some
it's Netflix.
or
Yeah.
something.
I'm
Pretty
That's
pumped
great.
for it. Yeah.
I'm jealous instantly after hearing.
Whitney, what are you?
I will be at the Moto Grand Prix Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, working for the fabulous Jugs Catering. If you're not familiar,
yeah,
they're the
absolutely.
oldest caterer in the city of
Yeah.
Indianapolis. I think founded in the 50s. So,
Nice.
yeah, I'm working side by side with one of my the girl actually with the horse farm that we were doing
All
makeup and engagement
right.
pictures.
Oh,
She's one of the catering managers for Jugs, so I
You
help
brought
her out
this
with
full
the.
circle, by the way.
I sure
All the
did.
I
way back to the
appreciate
beginning.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In the business, that's called a callback.
Oh.
Whatever he said. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the one that I was listening to the podcast with. She was very committed to listening to and seeing what we're all about. So it's
Awesome.
that's a good person to
Well,
mention twice on here.
Yourself?
On my list, myself, I don't know. I have no plans yet.
I don't believe
MotoGP.
that for a second.
I
Got
can
a
get
list,
you
though.
in.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so here at Liberty Street, I just wanted to mention though that Tuesdays, i.e. today, they have a open mic night for those of you that would want to come out. It's free. There's no cover charge or anything. You check in at 7,
That's
and
awesome.
it's from 8 to 11. So
And what night?
Talk to Tammy. Tuesday night.
night.
Tuesday.
Every
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's anything. I think you can do music. You can do stand-up comedy, spoken word.
From what I've heard, when Cliff comes, he plays a mean maracas here.
Okay. All
The
right.
open mic nights. So that's worth seeing.
I do love the maracas.
Oh, dude.
Wow.
That's very.
To add to that. Yeah. No,
So
all right.
also, it would be terrible if I didn't mention that the Indiana State Fair
yes,
starts
yes.
That's right.
7th
Yes.
Does it
Sunday?
really?
Yeah.
This weekend.
this weekend.
My goodness.
From August 7th to the 23rd.
Yeah.
Come out, see the big
Indiana
pigs.
State Fair.
Yeah, I
Big
rode
pigs,
the
big cattle.
the Monon today up to Broad Ripple on my bike, and
Nice.
we're setting all the trucks and like the Ferris wheel and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
up.
That's
You
awesome.
can
Like,
see
can I
them since
pull
last
over and
week.
just head in?
Yeah,
And,
that's
uh,
awesome.
You know, it's
Not quite yet.
terrifying. You know, it's terrifying. It's seeing all the rides being set up by, the people
Oh,
that are
yeah.
kind of, in a daze, just kind of,
Little-
lackadaisical.
shady.
Yeah,
Just say
just
don't
how
ride
rickety
them.
these things
That's
are.
for sure.
But,
So
I mean, I'm
main
sure there's...
attractions, we've got a free concert by the Indigo Girls.
That's my favorite
That's
band.
August
Nice.
7th. Megan Trainor's coming to town.
Okay.
That's August
All about
11th.
that bass, if you're not familiar.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
the song.
Oh, there it is.
And then the one that I, just as somebody that grew up in the 90s, Naughty by Nature is coming here.
Not because I hate you. Oh, man.
Are you down with
I'm trying to flip
OPP?
over.
OPP,
Go to
yeah.
that. You know me.
Hip Hop
August
Hooray.
15th,
Oh, hey.
7 p.m., Naughty by Nature.
No
Nice.
kidding.
I can vouch for
They're
the
still
Indigo
alive?
Girls personally, too.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Harry Connick Jr. is
Okay.
here on Thursday.
That's one for your parents.
The party that I think I mentioned to Brent before the show, Rooftop Thursdays at the Regent Towers at 5:30. That's after
Ooh.
work if you want drinks on the patio there.
Yeah.
That sounds sophisticated.
And it's a good
That
time.
sounds more
Food
sophisticated than
Truck
myself.
Fridays is this Friday as well. That's
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. That's
Nice.
an awesome time.
And
That's at the Old National Center, is that right?
Yes, outside the Old National Center.
Great
Indy
time.
11, just because we continue to plug them for no
Yes.
other reason that Brent and I love soccer.
Yeah, big fan.
Is Saturday. Also, speaking of soccer, English Premier League starts this weekend.
Oh my gosh!
So
Did
I'll
you
be
watch
at
the
Chatham
Community
Tap
Shield
at
this
9 a.m.
Chatham Tap, yeah.
Are you going to
Aren't
be
you
wearing
a-
like an
oh,
ascot?
you're
I'm a Liverpool fan.
Arsenal
Oh,
beat Chelsea
okay.
in Community Shield this past
Hashtag
weekend.
Liverpool FC.
Stinks. They're terrible.
Get out of here. Anyway, Big Car 48 is sponsoring the 48-hour film festival.
Mm-hmm.
They're helping them do the screening at the IMA at 5 p.m. So last weekend, if you saw anybody in costume running around, it was either Gen Con or 48-hour film festival, because everybody, if you're not familiar, cool little organization, people are shooting movies in 48 hours, writing, shooting, everything in 48 hours. They're screening them this weekend, so it's crazy. I know I had a few friends who
Very
did
cool,
it and posted
actually.
their
Okay.
It's kind of like reality
Yeah.
TV
Yeah,
show
right.
posted their
style.
stuff on Facebook. So
Like
yeah,
video
check that
shorts?
out.
How long are the?
I think it's as
Interesting.
much as they could try to handle in a weekend.
Oh,
Okay.
They only got 48 hours. So anyway,
Awesome.
thanks everybody for listening.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you,
We'll be back
JD.
Next week.
Thank you. Thank you for
For
having
being
me.
on
Thanks
the
for having
show.
me also.
Definitely.
Thanks, Whitney, for being
Thank you,
our
Whitney. Yeah.
Like us on Facebook.
Yep.
If
Oh,
you don't, I will invite you
good
to like us
reminder.
on
I'm so
Facebook.
bad at the social media.
Going
So
out there.
I will invite you personally.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
It's at Flyover
iTunes.
At
Live.
Flyover Live.
Like us
or
on iTunes.
Facebook.com/FlyoverLive.
Yeah.
And subscribe on the iTunes. So thanks a lot, everybody, and hope to listen to this next week.
Thank y'all.
You will pass. I will set my feet and raise my chin when the thunder hits.